My dad kicked me out on my birthday, so I cut off every bill and watched their lives crumble. You ever have a day so bad, so mind-wreckingly awful, that it changes your whole damn life? Yeah, that was my 24th birthday. It started off normal enough. I clocked out early from work at the insurance company. The weather outside was brutal, icy Michigan winds cutting through my jacket like knives, but I didn't care. I was excited. I thought, maybe, just maybe, my family would remember what today meant. I stopped at the corner bakery and picked up a small cake for myself. Dumb, right? Buying your own birthday cake. But you get used to doing things for yourself after a while. I pulled into the driveway of our little house on the edge of Lansing, headlights cutting through the growing dusk. The place looked the same as always. Tired. Run down. Like nobody inside really gave a damn anymore. Inside, it smelled like burnt ham and cold air. Mom, Karen, was fiddling with the table settings, slapping down paper plates like it was a chore. Dad, Robert, was already parked at the head of the table, swirling a glass of cheap wine, staring up at the ceiling like maybe God himself owed him an apology. And my little brother Mason. Mason just sat there, looking uncomfortable as hell, poking at the mashed potatoes with his fork. The birthday decorations? Non-existent. No balloons. No candles. Not even a card. Whatever. I told myself it didn't matter. I set the bakery cake quietly on the counter and took my place at the table. Dinner started in thick, choking silence. The only sounds were the clinking of silverware and the soft hum of some old country song leaking from the radio. I caught Mason's eye and gave him a small smile. At least he remembered. He always did. I was halfway through scooping some potatoes onto my plate when it happened. Dad slammed his knife down onto the table. The crack echoed through the tiny kitchen like a gunshot. I jumped, almost dropping the bowl. Mason froze, fork halfway to his mouth. Robert's eyes locked onto mine. Cold, hard, distant. And he said, "Come as you please. Emily, you're a burden. And you can't live here anymore." Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what happens next. At first, I honestly thought I misheard him. I blinked, waiting for someone to laugh, to say gotcha. But nobody laughed. Mom let out this weird little cough laugh, like she wanted to pretend it was all a joke, but she couldn't quite pull it off. And Dad, Robert, just stared, dead serious. I set my fork down slowly, the scrape of it against the plate deafening. "What did you just say?" I asked, voice shaking despite myself. "You heard me," he said, leaning back in his chair like a king passing judgment. "You've stayed here long enough. This is my house, and him saying enough is enough." I looked over at Mom. She kept her head down, focused on her plate like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. Mason looked between them, between me, wide-eyed, his mouth slightly open. He looked like a kid watching his whole damn world fall apart. "You're serious," I said, more to myself than to them. Dad nodded once. Final. Unapologetic. I sat there for a second, heart hammering in my chest, and then I breathed. A long, slow breath. Because you know what? I wasn't gonna cry. I wasn't gonna beg. I wasn't even gonna get mad. If they wanted me gone, fine. But they were about to find out what life without me really looked like. See, I wasn't just some freeloader hanging around after college because I didn't want to move out. I paid the electricity, the internet, the gas, the water. Hell, I even covered Mom's stupid Amazon account so she could binge watch her dumb reality shows every night. Dad lost his job 3 years ago. Mom worked part-time at the school library. Without me, they were screwed. But if they didn't appreciate it, if they saw me as a burden, fine. They could learn the hard way. I pushed my chair back, picked up my plate, scraped the food into the trash. Not a word, not a scene. Just done. I glanced at Mason as I left the kitchen, gave him a tiny nod. I wasn't mad at him. Never could be. He looked like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. Because deep down, he already knew. He knew this wasn't just about tonight. This was the beginning of something bigger. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time, slammed the door behind me, and grabbed my suitcase from under the bed. Clothes, shoes, documents. Every little thing that was mine, packed methodically, almost clinically. I didn't cry. I didn't even shake. It was like my body knew. It was over. This wasn't my home anymore. Maybe it never really had been. A soft knock came at the door. I paused mid-fold, a sweater clutched in my hands. "Emily?" It was Mason, barely a whisper. I walked over and opened the door. He stepped inside, shoulders hunched like he was trying to make himself small. "You're really leaving?" he asked. His voice cracked a little and my heart twisted. I nodded. "They said it, didn't they? I have no reason to stay." He sat down heavily on the edge of my bed, looking around at the half-empty room like he was already mourning it. But if you leave, who's going to pay the bills? He whispered. I didn't answer right away, because he already knew. He wasn't stupid, and that was what scared him the most. They'll figure it out, I said finally. But even I didn't believe it. Mason stared down at his hands, knuckles white. I want to come with you, he said suddenly, voice raw. I froze. You can't, I said gently. You're still a minor. You have to stay. But they don't care about me either, he muttered. I know, I whispered back. And it killed me. It killed me to leave him there. But there was no other way. Not yet. You'll finish school, I said. You'll hold on. And when you're old enough, I'll help you get out. He nodded slowly, swallowing hard. You'll still text me, right? Every day? I smiled. Every day. He hugged me once, tight and fast, then disappeared back down the hall like a ghost. I zipped up my suitcase, grabbed my jacket, and paused. One last thing to do. I pulled out my phone, logged into every account tied to the house, electric, water, internet, and systematically removed my banking information from each one. Electricity? Gone. Internet? Gone. Gas and water? Bye. Even the stupid Netflix account Mom always stole my password for. Gone. No warnings. No second chances. I had been warning them for years by staying. They just hadn't been listening. When I finally rolled my suitcase downstairs, the living room lights were off. Dad and Mom were sitting there watching TV, acting like nothing had happened. No apology. No goodbyes. Nothing. I didn't look at them. Didn't say a word. Just walked out the door. Into the freezing night. The cold slapped my face like reality itself. Sharp, brutal, undeniable. But I didn't shiver. I didn't even flinch. I just kept walking toward my car. Toward freedom. Toward the life I should have claimed a long time ago. And as I pulled away from that house, watching it shrink smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror, I knew this wasn't the end of it. Not even close. Because when they realized what I had taken with me, when they realized just how much they depended on me, the real storm was going to hit. And this time, I was ready for it. I pulled into Ashley's apartment complex just past midnight. Tiny brick buildings stacked close together like they were trying to stay warm against the Michigan cold. I sat there for a second in the driver's seat, hands tight on the steering wheel, just breathing. Because it finally hit me. I had nowhere to go. No real plan. No family to fall back on. I was free. And terrified. But Ashley, God bless her, opened her door before I even knocked. Stay as long as you need, she said, pulling me inside without a single question. The apartment smelled like vanilla candles and microwave popcorn. It was small, cluttered, real, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. I slept on her couch that night wrapped in a spare blanket, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow, lazy circles, wondering what the hell my next move was going to be. The next morning, I made coffee, strong, bitter, cheap. Sat at Ashley's tiny kitchen table, opened my laptop, and started planning. First thing I did? Logged into every utility portal tied to my old house. Because guess what? Even though I took my banking info off the autopay, the accounts were still wide open. And my name? Still listed as the responsible party. Big mistake. Dad. Huge. I clicked through each one, carefully, methodically, like a surgeon carving out cancer. Electricity? Removed. Gas? Deleted. Internet? Gone. Even the Amazon Prime account Mom used to watch her stupid murder mystery shows at 3 a.m.? Canceled. Every link. Every tether. Cut clean. And as I sat there, sipping burnt coffee in Ashley's little kitchen, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. Or scared. I felt light. Almost giddy. Because for the first time in years, they were about to see what life was really like without me. The silence didn't last long. 3 days later, sitting at my temp desk at the insurance company, my phone started buzzing like crazy in my pocket. First one missed call. Then 3. Then 6. I pulled it out and just stared. Mom. Dad. Mom again. Then a text from Mason. The power's out. Dad's freaking. I put the phone down without replying. I had nothing to say. They made their choices. They could live with them. That night, while Ashley and I were making spaghetti in the cramped little kitchen, the phone rang again. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mom's voice crackled through the line, high-pitched, frantic, terrified. Emily, I don't know what's happening. The lights are off, the heat's not working, the internet's dead. Your father's going crazy. I stirred the pasta, dead-eyed, and said calmly, who do you think was paying for all that the past 4 years? Silence. I could almost hear her brain clicking into gear, realizing. You? She whispered finally. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Yeah, Mom. Me. But your father thought, she started. Exactly, I cut her off. You believed whatever Dad said. Now you can believe this too. You're on your own. And I hung up. Simple. Clean. Done. But, of course, it wasn't that simple. Because when people like my parents lose control, they don't just take it. They fight. And they fight dirty. The next morning, I woke up to a flurry of notifications on my phone. Suspicious login attempt detected. Bank account access blocked. New password requested. I sat bolt upright, heart hammering against my ribs. No way. No way. But deep down, I knew exactly who it was. Dad. Who else would try to hack into my bank account the second he realized he couldn't leech off me anymore? I called Mason, hands shaking slightly. He picked up on the second ring. Emily, he whispered. Dad's been digging through Mom's old notebooks. You know, the ones where she wrote down passwords and stuff? My stomach twisted. Of course. Of course Mom would be careless enough to leave that crap lying around. Thanks, Mason, I said, voice tight. Stay upstairs. Stay out of it. Are you going to be okay? He asked, voice small. I forced a smile he couldn't see. I'm always okay. I spent the next 2 hours locking everything down. Bank accounts, email, streaming services, even the food delivery apps, two-factor authentication, new security questions, new passwords so long and random no human could guess them. I turned my entire digital life into Fort Knox. Because I wasn't just defending money anymore. I was defending my future. For a few days, things stayed quiet. Ashley and I went about our little routines, work, dinner, bad sitcoms in the evenings. It was almost peaceful. Almost. Until Wednesday night. Mason texted me while I was brushing my teeth. Microwave's dead. Dad punched the fuse box. No internet. No heat. Mom crying. I stared at the messages, toothbrush still in hand. And for the first time since all this started, I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. The real kicker came the next day. 6 missed calls from Mom. 7 from Dad. A final voicemail that made my blood run cold. Dad's voice, low, hoarse, angry. Emily, you think you're so righteous. You think walking away solves everything? You think cutting off the bills makes you better than us? You're gonna regret this. You hear me? You're gonna regret it. I sat there in Ashley's living room, the old brown couch sagging under me, and just listened to the message again. And again, and again. And each time I felt less and less fear. Because it wasn't me he was mad at. It was himself. He just didn't know it yet. Later that night, sitting on the floor with Ashley, eating cold pizza straight from the box, I told her everything. Every ugly little detail. She didn't say much. Just listened. Nodded. When I finished, she leaned back against the wall, wiped pizza sauce off her chin, and said, You didn't betray your family, Emily. They betrayed you. You just finally stopped carrying their crap. And I realized. She was right. But just when I thought maybe, just maybe, things were settling down. I heard the pounding on the door. Heavy. Relentless. Ashley froze, pizza halfway to her mouth. I crept to the peephole, heart hammering, already knowing who it was. I looked, and my blood turned to ice. Standing on the other side of the door. Wild-eyed. Fists clenched. Was Dad. And he wasn't here to talk. It happened 3 days after Dad got arrested. I got a text from Mason. Your car's gone. I stared at the screen. What do you mean gone? His reply was instant. It's parked outside our house. My stomach twisted hard. I had left my car at Ashley's lot. Had both my keys. No one should have had access. I called Mason. Are you sure? I swear, he hissed. I walked past it this morning. Your coffee cup's still in the holder. I know it's yours. Silence buzzed between us. Then he added, voice low, Mom's been using it. My throat dried instantly. Stay inside, I said. Don't get involved. I grabbed Ashley's car keys without a word and drove back to my old neighborhood. There it was. My blue sedan, dusty, sitting like a guilty dog in front of the house. I got out, checked the windows. Inside, a grocery bag. A bottle of pills. Receipts with Mom's name printed clear as day. I clenched my fists until my nails dug into my palms. They hadn't just taken it. They were living in it. I rang the doorbell. Mom opened the door, fake smile plastered on her face. Emily. What a surprise. I stepped inside without asking. Where's my car? I said, voice sharp. She blinked, all innocence. It was just sitting there. You weren't using it. You stole it. Borrowed, she snapped. For a week? Bought groceries? Slept in it? Her eyes flashed. We needed it. That's not how this works. She crossed her arms. You're being selfish. I laughed, loud, bitter. Where's my laptop? She hesitated, then shrugged. I sold it. For what? Medicine for your father. Groceries. Bills. I stared at her. Really stared. There was no regret on her face. No shame. Just cold justification. You don't live here anymore, she said flatly. Anything you left is fair game. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police. Her mask cracked. You wouldn't dare. I dialed anyway. When the officers arrived, I showed them everything. Receipts, tracking history, my registration. Mom tried to argue. I'm her mother. One officer cut her off cold. Property is property, ma'am. Blood relation doesn't change theft. Another officer turned to me. You want to press charges? I nodded without hesitating. Yes. Mom's face crumpled. Emily, what are you doing to your family? I didn't flinch. Protecting myself. They told her to gather anything that was mine. I took back my car keys. Grabbed a small bag of clothes Shed stuffed into the laundry room. No apologies. No tears. Just silence as I walked out. That night Mason texted me again. Dad's out. Mom's panicking. And then, a few hours later. Unknown number. A message. You think you won. You'll regret this. No name. No signature. But I didn't need it. I knew exactly who it was. Dad. I showed Ashley the text. She read it once and tossed my phone back at me. You need to move. I know. You can't stay here. He's not done. I nodded. I already had a plan. Called Brooke, my coworker. She picked up on the second ring. Still got that spare room? She didn't hesitate. Yes. Bring whatever you can carry. Ashley helped me pack. No tears. No goodbyes. Just fast, quiet motion. When we finished, she squeezed my shoulder. Text me when you're safe. I nodded once. Thanks, Ash. For everything. She gave a half smile. Go. I didn't look back as I drove into the night. An hour later, parked in front of Brooke's small apartment building, my phone buzzed. Another message. You can run. You can hide. But family is forever. I stared at it. Then calmly took a screenshot, attached it to my growing police report file, and turned my phone off. No more fear. No more running scared. If they wanted a war, they were about to find out what losing everything really felt like. 2 days after I moved into Brooke's place, it started. First, weird text from unknown numbers. Just single words. Accident. Hospital. Insurance. At first, I ignored them. But Mason's call came in at midnight, voice shaking so bad I barely understood him. Emily, you need to be careful. Dad's been saying crazy stuff. What kind of crazy? He said. He could fix everything if something bad happened to you. I sat straight up in bed. Fix what? He's talking about insurance, Mason whispered. Your old life insurance policy, the one you forgot to cancel. You're still listed under their coverage, and he knows. I felt the blood drain out of my face. You're sure? I heard him. Mason almost shouted. He was on the phone, talking about accidents, payouts. Silence buzzed hard between us. I stood up, pacing. He's not just angry anymore, Mason said. He's desperate. The next morning, I checked. Logged into the old insurance portal, the one tied to my first job, the one I forgot to update after moving out. And there it was. Primary beneficiary, Robert Parker. My father. If something happened to me, he'd collect $250,000. I stared at the screen, hand frozen on the mouse. Mouth dry. He wasn't trying to scare me anymore. He was trying to cash me out. I called the insurance company immediately. Hello, I need to remove my current beneficiary. I'm sorry, ma'am, but for security reasons, that can only be updated in person. In person? I snapped. I'm out of state. We can schedule a notarized change. Earliest available is next week. A week. 7 days. Way too long. That afternoon, pulling out of the office parking lot, I noticed a black sedan parked across the street. Not Brooke's car. Not a neighbor's. No plates I recognized. I tried to shake it off. But an hour later, that same sedan pulled behind me at the grocery store. Then at the gas station. Then back near Brooke's place. At dinner, Brooke caught me staring out the window. What's wrong? I forced a laugh. Paranoia, maybe. She put down her fork. Dead serious. Tell me. So I did. Everything. The insurance. The black car. The messages. Brooke didn't even blink. You can't stay here anymore. I know. I mean it, Emily. You need to disappear for a while. I exhaled hard. I can't just vanish. I have work. Mason. Brooke leaned in. I sharp. If you don't vanish, you might not be alive to worry about either. 2 nights later, it almost happened. I was driving home from work, taking the side streets like always. A dark sedan suddenly roared out from a side alley. Headlights off. No signal. Straight into my lane. I slammed the brakes so hard the tires screamed. The other car swerved at the last second, grazing my back bumper before speeding off into the night. Shaking, heart pounding, I pulled over, head in my hands. They weren't playing anymore. They were trying to end this. I got back to Brooke's place and locked every door, every window. Told her everything. She called the police immediately. Told them about the suspicious car, the crash attempt, the insurance situation. They took a report, promised to patrol the area, but even the officer's eyes said it. You're not safe. Not really. The next morning, another text. This time no games. Should have stayed home, princess. Accidents happen. No name. No signature. But the stink of Dad was all over it. That same afternoon, I got the call from Mason. Panicked. Terrified. Emily, he's coming after me too. My blood froze. What? He said if he can't get you, he'll make sure someone pays. I didn't think. I just moved. Told Mason to pack a bag. Told him to meet me at the bus station. Within an hour, we were on the road, driving north, out of Lansing, into the cold back roads where nobody knew our names. In the rearview mirror, I swore I saw the black sedan once, twice. But I didn't slow down. Didn't stop. Mason sat curled in the passenger seat, clutching a backpack to his chest, face pale. I'm sorry, he whispered once. For what? For dragging you into this. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. You didn't drag me into anything, I said. They did. We drove for hours, headlights cutting through the dark. Finally pulled into a cheap roadside motel way past midnight. Room 12. 2 twin beds. 1 cracked lamp. It smelled like stale cigarettes and bleach. But it was safe. For now. Mason collapsed onto one bed. I sat on the edge of the other, staring at my phone, wondering how far Dad would go, and whether next time we'd be lucky enough to escape. Because the truth was, I could cut the bills. I could cut the internet. I could even cut contact. But I couldn't cut the blood that tied me to him. And he knew it. The motel room door rattled around 3 a.m. I sat up instantly, heart slamming against my ribs. Mason woke too, wide-eyed, breathing fast. A knock. Then a voice. Emily. Mason. Come on. Let's talk. Dad. Here. Now. I pressed a finger to my lips, motioning Mason to stay quiet. Another knock. Harder this time. You can't hide forever. Dad barked. I pulled out my phone. No service. Of course. Middle of nowhere. I mouthed the Mason bathroom. Locked the door. Now. He nodded, grabbed his bag, disappeared into the tiny bathroom, locking it behind him. I moved slowly to the nightstand. Grabbed the heavy old motel phone. Dialed 911. Busy signal. Again. Busy. Outside, Dad's voice turned colder. You're gonna regret this. You're tearing this family apart. I stood there, holding the useless phone, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear him. Then, the door handle jiggled. Once. Twice. Then a hard slam. He was trying to break it open. No time. I grabbed the motel chair, wedged it under the doorknob, pulled Mason's bag out of the bathroom. Out the window, I whispered. Mason's face was pale, but he nodded. The bathroom window was small, stiff, but it moved. I shoved the bag through first. Mason climbed after it, boots scraping against the frame. Go. I hissed. I climbed through right behind him, scraping my hands on the rusty metal. We landed in the bushes behind the building. Dad kept pounding upstairs, shouting. No sign he realized we were gone yet. We ran. Full sprint across the empty parking lot. Lights flicked on in random rooms, people waking up, staring. I didn't care. I grabbed Mason's hand, yanked him toward the main road. Far ahead, a gas station glowed dim yellow in the dark. Go there, I gasped. Call for help. We ran harder, breath burning our lungs, feet slamming the frozen ground. Halfway across the lot, a car engine roared behind us. Headlights snapped on. Dad's sedan. He had figured it out. He was coming. Fast. Too fast. Run. I screamed. We dove behind a dumpster. The sedan screeched past, tires spinning, headlights slicing through the dark. He didn't see us. Not yet. Mason fumbled out his phone. 1 bar. Enough. He dialed. 911. Motel 8. Emergency. Man trying to hit us with a car. He rattled off the address while I watched the sedan circle the parking lot, hunting. The dispatcher stayed on the line. Stay hidden. Officers dispatched. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Could we last that long? The sedan slowed, crawling past the dumpster. Dad's window rolled down. I saw his face. Wild. Sweaty. Furious. You can't run, Emily. He shouted into the night. You think this ends with you? The headlights swung right at the dumpster. Mason grabbed my hand. Held tight. I could hear my own breathing. Mason's heartbeat. The car inched closer. Closer. Then sirens, blasting down the road. Red and blue lights cutting through the dark like knives. Dad floored it. Sped toward the exit. But too late. 3 cruisers boxed him in at the entrance. Doors flying open. Officers shouting. Dad's hands came up slow, but his mouth still running, screaming about betrayal, about family, about debts owed. I didn't listen. I just grabbed Mason and ran toward the nearest cop. We're the ones who called, I gasped. They nodded, quick, professional. 2 officers wrestled Dad out of the car and onto the cold pavement. Handcuffs snapped shut. I stood there watching him. This broken, raging man. Not a father. Not anymore. Just a criminal caught in the act. He locked eyes with me once. Pure hatred. You did this, he hissed. I didn't blink. You did this to yourself. They shoved him into the back of a cruiser. Doors slammed. Engines roared. And just like that, he was gone. The officers took our statements under the buzzing gas station lights. I told them everything. The threats. The stalking. The insurance policy. One officer shook his head in disbelief. You're lucky you got out when you did, he muttered. Mason leaned against me, exhausted. I wrapped an arm around his shoulders. For the first time in what felt like forever. I wasn't scared anymore. I was just done. 2 weeks later, Dad was formally charged with stalking, attempted assault, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. He pled not guilty. Of course he did. But the evidence was stacked high. Phone records. Security footage. The crash attempt. The motel confrontation. It didn't matter what he pled. His life was already over. Mom tried calling. Left one voicemail. You ruined everything. I didn't respond. I had nothing left to say to people who chose hate over love. Mason enrolled in community college up north. Brooke helped me find a small apartment not far from the lake. It wasn't fancy. Peeling paint. Second-hand furniture. But it was mine. Ours. A place where nobody screamed. Nobody stole. Nobody lied. Just peace. Real peace. One evening, sitting on the tiny balcony, Mason turned to me. You think he'll ever stop hating us? I thought about it. Shook my head. Doesn't matter, I said. We're free. Mason smiled, a real smile, and for the first time, I realized he was healing too. Not just surviving. Living. And me? I stopped looking over my shoulder. I stopped waiting for the next explosion. I stopped letting blood define loyalty. Because family isn't who shares your DNA. It's who fights for you when everything falls apart. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away without looking back. And honestly, it still blows my mind. How does something like this even happen between people who were supposed to be your family? How do you go from unconditional love to betrayal so deep it feels like a scar on your soul? Have you ever had someone, your own blood, turn into a stranger right in front of your eyes? If you have, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments. Let's be there for each other. You're not alone in this. And if this story hit you, if it made you feel something, subscribe to the channel, share this story, and maybe, just maybe, it will reach someone who needs to hear that it's okay to walk away. Sometimes, saving yourself is the bravest thing you'll ever do.